This.
Yeah, recording in progress.
Awesome.
Great.
Great. Well, so I'm super excited to have Heather Gargis here with me today. LPC SEP, whole kind of alphabet soup behind her name. And I'm going to let Heather talk a little bit about that. As many people may know, there is this launch that has happened within my Out Loud Voice. It's a blog that's been around. I've been doing that blog for a long time. And periodically, we will hear from other voices, but this is a really intentional collaboration for the next, really the remainder of the year. Really wanting to bring people in who are going to talk about that relationship between faith and science, between theology and therapy, all of those things, kind of those worlds converging in one space, hoping to bridge that man-made chasm between faith and therapy. And I know when you and I met for coffee and we talked about this, you were like, yes, I'm in, sign me up. And I was so excited about that. So you are the first, you are our maiden voyage for this project. And I'm so thrilled that it got to be you and the amazing subject that you're going to talk about. So if you'll just give us a little snapshot of you, and then what readers will find this month in the blog, that would be awesome. And then why did you say yes to this whole crazy ride? Why did you decide to join us here?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, so my name is Heather Gargis. I am a somatic trauma therapist in St. Louis, Missouri. I specialize mostly out of using modalities like somatic experiencing with Peter Levine and neuroaffective touch with Aileen LaPierre, and really work with the body. That is a big passion of mine, is really helping people who come from really, really hard situations or trauma or even complex trauma, really learn what it's like to heal from what they've gone through and what they've experienced. And it's way bigger than just using our words. It is a lot about the nervous system. It's a lot about being able to allow the body to talk, allow the body to share its story, and to have this really beautiful mind and body relationship. A lot of times our mind and our body are very separate. That's something that I mentioned kind of in the blog early on, is kind of this classical Judeo-Christian type philosophies of like believing that the mind is separate from the body and that the body is inferior to. And so for a long time, people have been in this space of we're brains on a stick, and we are to function mostly, if not all the time, from our mind. And what we're recognizing and what we're realizing is that the mind, though very important and very, very good to be in, to have a relationship with, the body actually does more of the communicating and understanding and living in the world than the mind does. And if we deny the body, if we don't interact with the body, if we kind of put the body as something as weakness or inferior, it becomes really tricky. And a lot of people end up becoming stuck in terms of their healing journey. It's like, I've talked about this for so long, but now I'm finding this like inability to move on, this inability to like help my anxiety lessen or help my body find safety, or like be able to go and live in life and flourish in life in a way that feels regulated and grounded. And so I do a lot of work with people and getting into that space.
And so just to back up a little bit, so two things. One, when we say somatic, it's interesting because when you look up the word, it says relating to the body, exclusively separate from the mind. That's actually in the definition. And it makes me think about how trauma disintegrates our mind from our body. And so that work you do in the somatic or bodily experiencing with clients is to reintegrate mind and body. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. Yes. It's that mind and body are distinct from each other, but it's to help form a relationship with each other. And so a lot of times people I get this a lot of, they're like, I know that I don't want to do this, or I know that I don't want to like have this late night craving and snack and do this, or I know that I want to like do this particular thing, whether that's working out, but then there's this disconnect that happens and they actually like, it's hard to follow through, or they still move into that craving. And it's like, wow, like they're probably not on the same page. And so it's not about taking them and folding them into one. It's more about uniting them as a relationship.
I
And
love
what
that.
for mind to care for body and listen to body, and what is it like for body to learn how to trust mind and be in that type of relationship with each other.
And how do you see that as relating to our faith as people who come from a world, from a redemptive worldview, and as followers of Jesus? Because I don't think it was just a coincidence that he came in a bodily form, right, and interacted bodily with people, right? So how do you see that marrying so beautifully with faith?
Yes. I mean, I think you've already kind of started into that path of, that's a huge thing that Jesus did for us, is he came embodied, and he came not as a full grown man embodied. He started as a baby. Yeah. And that is very significant, that he started as a baby, and that, that plays into the impact of like, he like went through like pregnancy, like he was inside of Mary, like in that pregnancy. So for us to say like, oh, like, we start, remembering things, or like going into things that could be hard for us at like 4 or 5 or 6, like when our memory is on, and disregarding conception to when we start actually remembering cognitively, like that's a huge chunk of time that's so important in terms of developing as a human. And I think that there is so much there of like Jesus coming in that way for us to pay attention to. Yeah. That there's such importance of that, and what that is like to be embodied and to like listen from the beginning, from the moment of conception. Yeah. Being able to listen to that baby, listen to that body that is inside of that mom, and being able to work with that. And so that's a big part of it. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, of like, working with birth trauma or pre-birth trauma, these types of things, that like the human that was born out of that does not have that cognitive memory, but it is very impactful because their nervous system does have that memory. At 6 months in utero, our fight, flight, and freeze is fully developed. Yep. And so it is not wise for us to disregard what could be happening even in utero.
So I just want to make sure that listeners really hear that. Say that part one more time. 6 months in utero, from 6 months in utero.
6 months in utero, your fight, flight, and freeze responses, and fawn is in there too, and we can get into what that means too. But the fight, flight, and freeze responses, those defensive orientations that we have when we are working with or like perceiving threat, they are fully developed, 100% online, 6 months in utero.
And that's really important. And I think, and we have good research to recognize this. There's things that Dr. Rachel Yehuda has done. We can read the studies on the Dutch hunger winter, tragedies, women who were pregnant during 9/11, yes. Many different studies we can go to see this. And it really does sort of speak to that design and created order, right? Which then leads us to ask the question, if there's design and creation, then where's the designer and the creator? And how do we then really bring those two things together? That's so cool. So what are you hoping that readers will glean from your contribution this month, which is so good?
Yeah, thank you.
Because yes, you hit on the personal, the professional, and the practical, right? Which was like, I just can't thank you enough for that. So
thank you. Yeah. It was so fun. This is something I'm very passionate about. And so my hope for readers is to, one, for them to notice that their bodies are good. So often we are not happy with our bodies. I feel this pain. I have too much weight. I don't like the way I look. Like there's all of these negative spaces and media and whoever that are coming at our body. And my first big hope is for them to notice, like, wait a second, my body's good. And my body is a protector. And this is actually where I live. I don't live in a house. I live here.
That is so
Here.
good.
And so why don't I listen to her when she's telling me things?
Mhm.
What is it like for me to start listening to my body so my body can communicate with me? And then I don't, like, over time, I won't feel as bad,
Mhm.
or there won't be as much pain as I
Mhm.
form a relationship with my body, as I recognize that, like, my body's trying to communicate with me, trying to tell me different things, that, like, she's taking in the world, she's taking the environment, she's taking in people, like, doing all of this, like, taking in, trying to figure things out, trying to, like, understand what's safe, what's not safe. Is this a perceived threat? Not sure. Like, holding all of this within her, within the nervous system. And I would hope that readers start to even just be curious about their bodies.
Mm.
That if Jesus saw that it was so good to come in a body and to be in a body, and he was a carpenter for a while before he went into ministry, so he probably knows what sciatica feels like. He probably knows what it's like to miss the nail and hit the hammer on the feet, like, he
Yep.
understands that. And for
Mhm.
us to disregard and just continue to stay in our head
Mm.
really continues to make us separate from being whole. And I really do believe that that's a big part of the embodiment of Jesus, is he wanted us to realize that it is good to be whole,
That's good.
live in our bodies.
Mhm. And just kind of a little teaser, not only do you talk about that and talk about your story, but you also give some really great resources, just some practical, and how we can begin to do these things and where we can look for more resources on that.
Yes,
Really
yes, yes.
appreciate. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love, so one of the resources that I put in there, Kimberly Ann Johnson, her book, is so good, so powerful. She mostly talks about women and, like, what it's like to, like, move into your power as a woman and what it's like to be embodied. And while not really steeped in Christianity, like, I think it is so helpful to people who are starting this journey of, like, okay, what does this even mean? Like, how do I start to develop this relationship with my body? And I think her book is just so good. As well as Peter Levine. A lot of the stuff that he writes is great. He's been around for a very long time.
Mhm.
He is such a gentle soul. I actually got to be in a training with him.
Wow, that's so
Yes,
cool. I think like since the 70s, right? I mean,
yes,
he's been around a while.
yes, like late 60s, early 70s. This
Yeah.
started to,
Him and
like,
Pat Ogden. Yeah.
absolutely. And Stephen Porges and those group of guys. And he's got a lot of good stuff. And so I put one of his books in there, Waking the Tiger, but he's got loads of resources out there for people. He's got, like, trauma and memory. He's got, this one book, the teeny tiny pamphlet that's, like, called Trauma Healing. And so for people, and it's got, like, little practical things throughout the booklet.
Mhm.
And so I just love a lot of the stuff that he writes as well. And so, yes, it's great.
That's awesome. And just a bonus, I recently discovered that Hoopla actually has a 25-minute audible summary of Body Keeps the Score. So for people who
Awesome.
are wanting to get some sort of understanding around this, something a little more practical and not have to read, because so many of us have read that more for schoolwork, right?
Yes,
It's a
yes.
great book. Some people feel it's kind of textbooky. Some people feel it's like schoolish. I didn't
Sure.
really experience it that way, but I know a lot of people do. But if that's you and you want to learn more about what Heather's talking about, that's a great place to also go and find that resource on Hoopla. It's free because it's through Hoopla. If you have a library card, you can do Hoopla. Well, I'm so excited. This is already out, so people can go find it at myoutloudvoice.com, or they can go to Gina at ginaberkmeyer.com and click on the blog tab. And then, hey, Heather, you're going to also put this on your socials so people can read it and
Sure.
find it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
where can people contact you?
Yeah, sure. The easiest way to contact me is via email. That's something that's just easier to contact me with. And so my email is just heathergargis.oasis@gmail.com. And I can spell that out and put it in the comments or something like
We'll
that.
make
So
sure that we will
Yeah.
make sure it's in there so they can find you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for, like I said, for being our maiden voyage with this
Sure.
project. And I will expect that my readers will get to hear more from you in the future. So thanks
Great.
so much.
Well, thanks so much. I
Appreciate
appreciate
you.
it.